Hi scholars, today we're going to look at TEK 4.4G. I can round to the nearest 10, 100, or 1,000. And TEK 4.2D, I can round whole numbers to a given place value through the hundred thousands place. The strategy to round is the same for both TEKs, so I'm going to just combine them and teach you the strategy, and we'll just look at all examples. So let's get started. So let's look at the main strategy for rounding. The main strategy is to underline the place value they want you to round, circle the number to the right, and then whatever these two numbers are, you're going to round it, and then from this number that's circled, everything to the right becomes a 0, and then everything to the left stays the same. So let's say I'm given the number 246, and I'm told round to the nearest tens. So first of all, I have to know my place value. So that's ones, that's tens. So underline that place value that they want you to round. That's step 1. Step 2 is circle the number to the right, which would be this. Okay? After I'm done rounding, the rule is anything circled and to the right becomes a 0. So in this case, this is the only thing that will become a 0. And then everything to the left stays the same. So my new answer will be 2 and then whatever this will be rounded to. So what I always tell my students is cover everything up except the underlined number and the circled number. So when you think of 46, it's so much easier to round than thinking of 246. So if you look at 46, you just need to ask yourself, is it closer to 40 or is it closer to 50? And so in this case, it's closer to 50. So you would change the 46 to 50. So let me give you another example. How about 329? Round it to the nearest tens place. Underline the tens place, circle what's next to it. When you think of just 29, you think, well, 29 is practically 30. So you would change that to 30. Everything to the left stays the same. So let's take it up a step, like 1,263. So I need to round to the nearest tens place. So this is my tens place, circle to the right, cover everything. 63 is close to 60, so I'm going to change that. And then like I said, everything to the left stays the same. Now let's say I was told round that number to the nearest hundreds place. So this is my ones, tens, hundreds. Underline the hundreds place, circle to the right. Look at just 26. 26 is close to 30. Now, in this situation, I have something to the right, which is this 3. That also becomes a 0, and everything to the left stays the same. Let's say they wanted me to round this to the nearest 1,000. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousand. Underline the thousands place, circle next door. So 12. When you just think of 12, you need to think like, well, 12 is between 10 and 20. 12 is closer to 10 in that situation, so I would make that a 10. And the rule is everything circled and to the right becomes a 0. So 1,236 is closest to 1,000 when you round to the nearest thousands place. So another example. Let's make it even a bigger number. 34,529. Let's say I'm told round this to the nearest hundreds. Ones, tens, hundreds. Underline the hundreds place, circle next door. Cover everything up and just think of 52. Think, well, there's 50, 51, 52, and you keep going and you'll eventually end up at 60. 52 is closer to 50, so I'm going to change that to 50. Everything circled and to the right will become a 0, and everything to the left stays the same. I want to talk about some other basic numbers, such as 92. If I'm rounding this to the nearest tens, that's the ones, that's the tens. 92 is closer to 90. So 92 rounds to 90. But what if it was a number like 98 and I'm rounding to the nearest tens? Well, 98 is really close to 100. So in this situation, I'm adding a digit to the 9. Well, when I add a digit, it becomes 10. So then that's why it ends up looking like this. So you might end up in those kind of situations too. So for example, if I had 397 and I'm rounding to the nearest hundreds or nearest tens, so then 97 is, if I just cover that up, 97 is closer to 100. So I don't do this. You don't do that. You can't say 397 is rounds to 3,100. You're actually adding that one extra digit. So it's like saying, you know, we're adding a digit. So 9 plus 1 is 10. You're carrying, and so it's actually like saying it's 400. You know, 397 is 3 away from 400. So something to keep in mind. So this rule for rounding works, but if it has to go to the next digit, like up to, if it has to go to 10, then you need to be aware that that's going to change the number next to it. So let me give you another example. How about 82,400 or 986? If I'm rounding to the nearest 100, ones, tens, hundreds, underline that, look next door. When you look at 98, it's close to 100. So if you're making 9 a 10, it's like you're putting the 0 here and you're carrying a 1. So the 2 add 1 equals 3. So it's actually 83,000. Remember, anything circled and to the right becomes a 0. Anything here on out stays the same. But in this situation, this one does change because I have to change this, and the next number after 9 is 10. So you put the 0 here, you carry the 1, and the 2 plus 1 equals 3. Hope that doesn't confuse you. Let's go over some more examples. All right, I need to round this to the nearest, let's say nearest 100. So ones, tens, hundreds, underline that, circle the 8. 90, when you look at just 98, that's 100. So you're making a 9 a 10. Well, you can't put a 2-digit number where there's only a 1 digit allowed. So it's like you put a 0 and you carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. And remember, everything to the left stays the same. And then everything to the right, like circled and over, becomes a 0. Here's a crazy example. Sorry, let me make that one a 6. So round to the nearest 1,000. So this is my thousands place. Look next door. When you just look at 96, that looks like 100. So remember, 9 becomes a 10. Carry the 1. Anything circled and over becomes a 0. Okay? But here's what's crazy. So if I carry the 1, 9 plus 1 is 10. So that actually affected many numbers to the left. So that rule of everything to the left stays the same only works if if only these things need to change. But, you know, if this is a 9 and that has to become a 10, you know, that can affect a lot of numbers to the left. So it just kind of depends. So I want you to round each of these to the nearest tens. This is easy because you can just look at it and be like, okay, 82 is between 80 and 90. Which one would it be? 41 is between 40 and 50. Which one would it be? So just press pause, go through them, and press play when you're ready. Okay, when I think of 82, I know that's closer to 80. 41 is closer to 40 than 50. 68 is actually closer to 70 than 60 because this is just 2 away from 70. 79 is 1 away from 80. 52 is only 2 away from 50. 38 is only 2 away from 40. So if you can round numbers to the nearest 10, you can honestly round any number. It can be up to the millions, and all you got to do is just cover up all the digits around it and just pretend like you're rounding to the nearest tens. I want you to round all of these to the nearest tens. I want you to make sure also you underline. That really helps. Make sure you round to the nearest tens. Go through the, press pause, go through them, press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so I just look at 73. It's actually closer to 70, and remember, everything to the left stays the same. 59 is closer to 60, so that's going to be 260. 87 is closer to 90, so that's going to be 490. 86 is closer to 90, so 790. 91 is closer to 90. Oh, here's a tricky one. 98 is closer to 100. So I'm going to change, add 9 plus 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. So that actually becomes 600. Okay, now I want you to round all of these to the nearest tens. Remember, I want you to do nearest tens, so it helps when you circle and underline and cover up the numbers and just focus on that. Press pause when you're ready to do all the problems and press play when you're ready to check. So if I were to just look at my tens place, okay, 76 is closer to 80, 41 is closer to 40, 89 is closer to 90, 28 is closer to 30, 38 is closer to 40. Oh, 95 is actually closer to 100, so I know I'm going to have to carry. Now I'm going to go back, and all I got to do is put the other numbers in front of it. So see, my numbers are getting larger, but I'm able to solve these. You know, rounding is not difficult. It could be the longest number ever, and just focus on those 2 digits. Now I want you to round these to the nearest hundreds. So ones, tens, hundreds place. Press pause, work the problems, and press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so just looking at the 92, that's closer to 90. Just looking at the 82, that's closer to 80. Just looking at the 45, that's closer to 50. So like I said, anything circled and to the right becomes a 0. So this already became a 0. See, the only thing I have is another 0 here. This became a 0, so there's one more 0 after it. This became a 0, there's only one more 0 after it. And everything to the left stays the same. So 45,900, 67,800, 119,500. Okay, I want you to do these last 3 rounded to the nearest 1,000. Press pause, work the problems, and press play when you're ready to check. Okay, so I said nearest 1,000. So 9 and 2, 9 and 1, 1 and 2. So I'm going to do one by one instead of going through like I did on the last one. So 92 is closer to 90. This and over is 0, so that is a 0 already. So another 2 zeros. And then everything to the left stays the same. So 879,000. And notice, like when I say round to the nearest 1,000, your answer should also, you should hear the word 1,000, usually. Now, unless you have to, like, let's say this rounded up to 10, so then that would change your answer, but, you know, for the most part. So 91 is closer to 90, and then there are 2 zeros after it. And then everything to the left stays the same. So 369,000. We have 12 here. 12 is closer to 10. Everything to the left is zeros. I'm sorry, everything to the right becomes zeros. Everything to the left stays the same. So 481,000. So I hope you have a better understanding of how to round to any place value. If you're still unsure about things, you can always go back to the beginning of the video and review the rules again.